Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Tunes with Toys. I am your host, Barney the Dinosaur from Barney and Friends, and the show Adventures of the Trio. And I'm still learning how this StreamYard software works. Again, welcome to Talking Tunes with Toys, the podcast where we talk about niche, obscure animation and cartoons in the popular world that is the entertainment industry as a whole. It is the holiday season. And at the time of this recording, although by the time this comes out online, it'll be several months after the fact. But right now, you can just treat this next hour or so as if we were in the holiday season. Is in those classic 3 months where just address all the holidays you can imagine. You know what that equates to? Food. Lots and lots of stuff in your mouth filled with tons of food. Whether it's sugary sweets or gigantic slabs of poultry or whatever kind of traditional holiday eats they eat that involves tinsel. And if you aren't in the mood to home make this stuff, there is fine eating establishments and in your local area where you can stuff your face silly with and then quickly realizing that you just spent hundreds to probably thousands of dollars on desserts. Or that might be just me. And speaking of grease traps, of course, are my cohorts, SpongeBob and SpongeBob SquarePants. What's up, everybody? Ha ha ha, yeah, everyone. Now, I can't tell, was that a dig to me or the fact that I work at a fast food restaurant? Call it what you may, although I'm pretty sure the Krusty Krab has been established as a grease trap in many cases. Call it what you may, but it's still fine dining nonetheless. In your opinion. Okay, you can come at me all you want, but I happen to be a connoisseur in the fast food industry in the real life. A fun fact, people. I bet you don't know that this is the 25th anniversary of my show. Oh, and there are plenty of fast food collabs that are celebrating me right now. Again, by the time this comes out online, it'll be several months after the fact and several months after your 25th anniversary. Touche. This is why you should never be a spokesman or never hire SpongeBob as a spokesman for your fast food restaurants. They offered me the role in some cases. And how did that go? I maybe didn't cut the bell. Or cut the mustard. Oh! Were you waiting for something to happen after that? No, not really. Anyway, folks, we're here not talking about food. We are talking about animation today because animation, as surprising as you might think, animation transpires from everywhere, not just in TV and media. Sometimes there are a lot of popular companies that use animation for their products, for their companies, or in this case, for high eating, I guess, if you want to equate SpongeBob into that category or whatever. And we're going to talk about one of those in particular that has capitalized on the use of animation with our amazing guest here today. He is a TikToker going by the name of Lukas Doerzapf and an aspiring voiceover artist. Ladies and gentlemen, Lukas Doerzapf, everyone.
Hello. Am I coming in loud and clear?
You are coming in crystal clear, my friend.
Awesome. It's great to be here. This is my first ever podcast, anything I have ever recorded. So, first time for everything,
Well, we're glad that we share the honor of being that. And I do want to apologize up top because I'm pretty sure I mispronounced your name, right? Is it Doerzapf? Is that right? Lukas Doerzapf?
It is Doerzapf. I'm taking my doors off their hinges.
Got it. Yeah, I practiced that for like a few hours before we got on, and I immediately buffed it, so I want to apologize.
No, it's okay. I have had many people say, "Is it Doerzapf?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're not even trying. Come on."
I mean, you could say the same thing about Deist, about my partners over here. Which, by the way, hi, By the way, I'm pretty sure you know me. I'm Barney the Dinosaur from Barney and Friends. And then, of course, you most likely know my cohorts, the SpongeBob's, what I call one SpongeBobble and Sponge Balloon. Hi, Lucas. Hello, Lucas. How are you?
I'm good. Sponge Babble and Sponge Bobble was the name.
SpongeBobble, yes.
Sponge Bobble. Yes, I am good, fellas.
It is referenced that I am a bobblehead-like creature, even though nothing about his appearance, as you can see in the Chiron, is a bobble feature in any kind.
Oh
That's your
yeah.
opinion, so you be quiet. Just, uh, there's just no winning with him. All right. Anyway, I do want to touch on this one for a sec. An aspiring voiceover artist, is that correct?
It is correct. As of what month are we in? We're in October. We're in
By the
October.
time, by the time we were recording this, it is October. Although, again, like I said, by the time this comes out online, it'll be several months afterwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been an aspiring voiceover artist since July of last year. I actually just turned 23 on the 20th of this month. So I am 23 years
Congratulations.
and 2 days old. But I have been an actor since my sophomore year of high school. I did all my plays and I was in my theater class, and it was, it was kind of an awakening. And I had a really cool English teacher that was like, "Hey man, I'm joining drama next year. I'm going to be the drama teacher." And her and I vibed really well. So then it just, started from there. And then life had some ups and downs, and then one day I saw an ad for Steve Bloom's voiceover academy, and I was like, hey, that's Spike Spiegel. I know that guy. So I decided to join that, and I've been learning. I haven't actually been in anything yet. This is probably the closest thing to voiceover I've honestly ever done, but every day I try to practice a little bit, just keep working on the craft, because it's the craft is good, but it's been a little how do I say this, diluted since high school, because that was
Sure.
like 5 years ago now. But every day just working on it. So yeah, but yeah, that's my little story.
Well, we always love having actors here. We've talked about this before. We've had a voice actor on who was on before, and we're never intimidated by it. But I mean, and I'm sure there are some people that can comment on this podcast say, "Oh, wait, you have a voice actor as your guest? Won't you feel intimidated by that?" And I don't really understand that. And because, like, I mean, you're talking to three iconic voices of three iconic cartoon characters. I mean, it's not like this podcast is hosted by one guy who thinks he can voice over three very arbitrary voices, three distinct arbitrary voices of three characters, all of which are iconic voices in their own right. Right? I mean, yeah, yeah. You look at it like that way, maybe, but I mean that's only hypothetical. I mean, so yeah, and so yeah, I really don't see any intimidation
No,
behind having a
there's
voice
four
actor by that. You know what I mean?
there's four people in the room. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah, so again, I'm very glad to have it here. Before we start talking about, niche and obscure animation, I just want a little bio to you. Like, what is the general interest you have with cartoons? And I know you said you're an actor first, but what sort of inspired you, or like what genres really influence you? And do you think you can pinpoint like a specific time in your life where you wanted to pursue, the voice acting side of this creative endeavor?
Well, when I this doesn't like go back to voice acting, but when I was like, I think 4.5, I believe, I was one of those kind of poor kids where we didn't really have like cable or anything. So I went to the thrift store a lot, and I would just buy Disney movies on VHS, like The Brave Little Toaster, Cinderella, Toy Story, tons
Mm-hmm.
of movies. And I think when I was 4.5, my mom, pretty sure, introduced me to The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh yeah.
And that has become my favorite movie of all time because I've seen it probably like 35 times now. And it just the art and the characters and the music at that time, that's kind of, I feel like that was the spawn of my inner artist and creativity, because I just thought, oh wow, the idea as a kid, okay, as a kid, the idea of a holiday literally taking over another holiday and causing chaos, that blew my mind more than anything else. But I've been, into animation since like a kid, of course, because I'm not going to be watching Scarface as a 3-year-old. But I've always loved animation, and I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I grew up with SpongeBob and of course Disney, DreamWorks, Shrek, and the show we're going to be talking about today, and a couple of more cartoons here and there. The Muppets kind of came into play more in my teenage years, or late kinder years, I should say. But animation is just like beautiful because you can do whatever you want with it, and it's so cool that there are people out there who just voice like SpongeBob every day, and people who voice Ren and Stimpy and all these cool characters, and it's like I love normal movies, of course. Like I have my fair share of my favorite live action movies, but I respect animation more than any other kind of filmmaking, just because it's such a long, creative, hard, tough process to draw and animate everything and put it all together, put frame by frame and record the lines. It's like everything has got to be like perfect to the people making that movie at that time, or that show, or that short. And when it was, I think, March, April of last year, that's when I saw that ad for Bloombox. And I always wanted to be an actor, but I kind of had like a few years where I graduated high school. I was like, oh man, I graduated high school. That's so cool. And then I went to college, and then COVID hit. And then, 3.5 out of my 5 college semesters were online. And it was just, repeat. Type this paper online. Read this giant PDF on your screen. Do this. It killed my motivation to even go to college. And I was very lucky, and I got a free first year of college with where I was. And I have a college right next to my house, actually, that I graduated from. But,
Nice.
I went to college, and then I just kind of was like, what do I do with this degree? So I saw that ad for Steve's voiceover school, and I was like, well, I've always wanted to be an actor, but I don't have the money to move to LA because I live in California, where everything is $200 million more expensive than it should be. So I was like, screw it. Why not? I'll try it. And I think that was the best risk I have ever taken. And I've made a couple of friends here and there, branching out. I actually just went to the LA Animation is Film Festival this last weekend. And I saw some wonderful creators there, and wonderful anime and animated movies, and met some cool people. I saw the creator of OKKO. He was just there. And I was like, what? And then I met Chris Sanders, the director of The Wild Robot, and got a photo with him. And I met Eric Bauza, the voice actor for Daffy Duck in The Day the Earth Blew Up. That was great. It was so cool. And it's just, I've only been into this journey of voiceover mainly for a year and 3 to 4 months now, but I don't regret it. This is the best thing I've done with my time since then. So yeah, I feel like just kind of over time, little things here and there inspired me. And obviously the ad for Steve's class his class kind of changed the way I view life as a whole. So I'm very grateful for him and a lot of other people I've got to meet this year and talk to about the craft and everything. So yeah, life is good, friend.
Yeah, it's one of those things, we talk about it a lot on this podcast. It's that thing with voice acting, particularly voice acting for animation, where you can really just go anywhere with it, and especially with just like you mentioned, the production of animation in general, where your brain can really just go anywhere and anywhere. Like you mentioned, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Just that idea alone, at its core, seems obscure enough, and it is to some extent, and but it's that kind of obscurity that with the right people and with the right voice actors in general, can go off to become one of the most memorable sources of animation, especially for the holidays that can ever be produced. And that is exactly the type of thing that we love, especially when we're talking about niche animation,
Hmm.
and uh, and especially why actually like why we like talking about this, including the show you brought on, because not only is this a good show, which is shocking. I'll explain that in a minute, and even more shocking that while this show itself is niche, the IP surrounding it behind it is probably one of the most iconic brands in the history
Of
of mankind
America.
of America. Yeah, America. Yeah, uh,
It is huge.
yeah,
Um,
ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and you didn't get an inclination from the bit we were doing before, we are talking about the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald, a series of animated hour-long episodes. It's created by the McDonald's Company, to celebrate everything, everything that McDonald's has created from the wacky characters from Ronald McDonald, to everything from what they say McDonald's Land. And Lucas was McDonald's Land. I don't know, like, were you privy to like the characters and the world surrounding McDonald's? I don't know, when you first watched this show.
so the way I found out about this show is a long time ago. There was this recycling place where I live, okay, and there was this just like thrift store type of building right next to it where people would like if they found for most items for I'm assuming like if they found like a bike, okay, that someone was dumping and they were like, oh hey, that could be sold for money, they would bring it to this thrift store right next to this recycling place. And I was always attracted to the VHS tapes because I had a VHS tape. For those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. But I remember going to this place and I was just looking at the movies. Oh look, there's Cinderella. Oh, look, there's there's Mulan. Oh, what's this? The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald. Huh? This was in the year, I believe, 2007, 8ish, and I saw this VHS tape and I was like, this is weird. So I asked my dad to buy it and he was like, okay, sure, dude, whatever. And this was I knew about most of McDonald's like lore, I guess is the right word. Like
Mm-hmm.
I knew about, Ronald, the Hamburglar, Grimace, the bird. But and I think I knew about the Fry Guys because I would always find like McDonald's toys when I went thrifting and stuff. But this show was very interesting, and I have a lot of fond memories with it.
And it's
Um,
even weird, and it's even weirder the fact because yeah, you mentioned you got this in a VHS, which for those of you that don't know, as you just said, VHS has tapes were something from the '90s. That's another thing that we got to touch on. And this show was created around like the late '90s, and not only did they have a VHS in it, but it was also exclusively for McDonald's. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Uh, but just to give a brief synopsis on what this show is about, how Spun Balloon is going to give us a little basic synopsis and some behind the scenes stuff and stuff for people that may not be aware of the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald at the time of, and brace yourself for this, at the time that they were made, between 1998 to the early 2000s. This is a segment we call Brief Bob. Spun Balloon, let it rip.
We spent way too much time researching popular food-based companies and the animated IP surrounding them. It's very likely we're missing something overtly obvious, so just bear with us as we go down this list. The first animated mascot for cereal that wasn't based on an existing cartoon character was an animated boxing glove repping Grape Nuts cereal in 1955. What followed were a slew of animated serial mascots, some of which are still relevant today. In that same year, Tony the Tiger was introduced to the world after being created in 1952 with the help of a group of retired Disney animators known as Quartet Films, who would also go on to design the Jolly Green Giant and the final designs for Snap, Crackle, and Pop, who were the mascots for Rice Krispies. In 1963, the mascot for Captain Crunch, also known as Captain Horatio Magellan Crunch, was brought to life through a series of animated commercials by legendary animator Jay Ward, creator of the original Rocky and Bullwinkle show. If we're talking about serialized animations and not just animated commercials, the closest examples I could get was a collection of animated shorts Trix Yogurt did in 2008 as a promotional for Trix Yogurt known as Trix Tunes, which can be found online. I did find a couple of sources that said there was an animated show revolving around Toucan Sam from the Fruit Loops cereal, but those were fan-generated sites, so I can't confirm nor deny any existence of that being real or not. And just for a point of clarity, the Flintstones were already around long before they were attached to the Fruity Pebbles cereal. The company Post Consumer Brands partnered with Hanna-Barbera at the time to license the characters for their cereal in 1971, long after the show had already ended. In terms of fast food companies playing into this game, that's a whole nother web of intrigue. Burger King attempted to break through the animated game with their own slew of characters known as the Burger King Kingdom, with characters such as Burger Thin, Sir Shake-a-Lot, and yes, the Burger King himself. Although it's unclear if they ever made it into actual animation. And they also had the Burger King Kids Club, which appeared to have actual animated mascots characters, but they were children and not the Kingdom characters. There was a slew of characters that absolutely made it into the animated zeitgeist, and those were the wacky characters created by the McDonald's company. The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald were a series of animated episodes created in 1998 to highlight the escapades of the characters of the McDonald Land's brand franchise created by McDonald's, which featured characters such as Grimace, the Hamburglar, the Fry Kids, and the titular character Ronald McDonald. The collection contained a total of 6 hour-long episodes and were produced and made available exclusively in participating McDonald's restaurants from 1998 to the beginning of 2003. So that's the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give a quick shout out to Wimpy's, formerly known as Wimpy Grills or Wimpy Bar, not just located as product placement in Universal Orlando in Florida, but an official burger restaurant found mainly in the UK, Africa, and parts of Asia, and inspired in part by the iconic Popeye character J. Willington Wimpy. The actual show, not the restaurant. Back to you guys.
That might be one of the most comprehensive brief pops I think we have ever done on this podcast. I mean, they're all pretty good, but I mean, that was probably the most extensive I think we've ever done on this podcast. And I will say, and the sponsors, I don't even know if you guys know this, but your other half, Tom Kenny, your boy, is actually the voice of Pop from Rice Krispies. Hey, that's a little fun fact. Your boy Tom Kenny is the voice of one of those mischievous elves from the Rice Krispies cereal.
I actually did not know that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about this show. But I do want to ask Lucas. You're a few meters younger than any of us. Were you a fast food kid growing up? Because I'll be honest, our producer was, I would say, like a fast food head. So like oftentimes McDonald's and Burger King and were like his, I want to say, toy banks almost.
Well, I was a bit of a fast food kid, I would say. My mom relied on Taco Bell for dinner quite a bit. And my dad and I, every Saturday, we would go eat at McDonald's. Back when they had the GameCube, like the game room, and they had like Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Oh, wow. You're really giving some deep cuts.
Oh, dude. I was like, man, that was the time. And then I would unlock Jigglypuff. And then the game had no memory card in it, so the whole thing would reset, and I'd be like, no! So I unlocked Jigglypuff at least like 5 times on those machines.
Yeah, it is very fascinating how... Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
No, I just said what a trip.
Yeah, it is fascinating how a lot of those fast food, particularly McDonald's, was really kid centric, even back then, and so it is, and so I guess I do kind of understand and why would they would jump into animation, but I do want to ask Lucas because you said you discovered this and you had fond memories of it. What about this makes it a guilty pleasure nowadays?
Well, a few years ago, so with this show, there was only so many episodes. It was very short-lived, even though it lived for like 6 years technically. Um, I would find all of the VHS tapes like at different thrift stores. I'd be like, "Oh, there's that one. Oh, there's that one." And at the end of every episode, there would be a an ad being like, "In the next episode in McDonald Land," and it was voiced by Jim Cummings, which I just recently found out, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, no, I just remember watching them and being like, "This is so cool!" Like a McDonald's cartoon, like Taco Bell doesn't have this, Burger King ain't got this, freaking Del Taco, nah, man, we got the McDonald's cartoon. But I watched it again about 2 years ago with a very close friend, and I was like, "Hey, man, you've heard of this, right?" And he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Do you want to watch it?" Because when you just like have a feeling about something and you just Google it. And you're like, "Oh, look, there it is, all on YouTube for free." And I told my friend, I was like, "Hey, dude, do you want to watch this with me? Because this is like crazy that it's just on the internet." And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And we watched it. And some parts I liked more than others. There were some episodes where I watched them and I was like, "Oh, this is not as good as I remember it." But it's very interesting because there's a couple of things that are interesting about it. First is that in every episode, there's like 4 or 5 songs in every episode. And, you might think like, "Oh man, that's probably pretty cool." And, some songs were okay, but others were like one of the lyrics in the first episode. So the episodes, can I list off the episodes really quick?
Sure.
Okay. So the first episode is called Scared Silly, where they go to like a haunted, or they go camping in the woods, Ronald and the gang, and then they find this like haunted house and they're like, "Oh, cool, let's check that out." The second episode is The Legend of Grimace Island, where Grimace gets like a letter from like his long lost relatives. And then Ronald's like, "All right, Grimace, let's go visit your relatives," for some reason. The third one, which was my least favorite as a kid, The Visitors from Outer Space, where basically Hamburglar makes a deal with an alien, and then the alien like unintentionally kidnaps him. And Hamburglar was like, "Yeah, man, I wanna do pranks and mess around with you." And then the alien's like, "Okay, cool." And then he just abducts him in his spaceship, and then Ronald and everybody else has to go save him. There's episode 4, which is Birthday World, where they basically it's Ronald's birthday, and they get an invitation to this amusement park called Birthday World, and it's like the worst amusement park ever. And it's crazy. It's probably like the weirdest one. Then there's the fifth one, which is called Have Time Will Travel, which was my favorite as a kid. And it's one where they literally just go back in time and they're just like messing around and they see other versions of themselves. Like there's a caveman Ronald called Rumfold McDumpfold, and it's so crazy. But in every episode, they have some songs, and there's also a 6th episode, which was lost media for years. I like always would try to find this one, and I could never find it. And it always made me mad because at the end of the 5th VHS, it'd be like, "Next time in McDonald Land, the McDonald Land crew will go to McDonald Land Lock and see if there's a hidden creature there." And I was like, "Oh boy, I can't wait for that one." I never found it. I never once found it. And I actually learned it was lost media when I went to rewatch the series, and it's on YouTube now. So it was lost media for like 20 years and it got found, which is really cool. And just to see the conclusion of that years later as a grown-up, I was like, that's crazy. It kind of tripped me out. But anyway, sorry about my tangent. Let me go back to what I was saying. But Yeah, and every episode, the reason why it's a guilty pleasure for me is because the animation's actually pretty good. Like it's nice to look at, and it's got like a cool art style. It's all wacky and zany. In every episode, there's some songs which can be good or bad. In the first episode, there's a song where they're setting up camp, and the lyrics literally are like, "It's time to set up camp," and then they say that like 3 more times, and you're like, I wonder what the point of the song is. I wonder what they're doing. So that was always kind of weird, but it's a fun little show. It's interesting. It has some funny characters, and also the beginning and end of every episode, there's a live action segment, and there's a character in the show named Sunday, which is Ronald McDonald's dog. Ronald McDonald's dog, and he's voiced by D. Bradley Baker, which is crazy. Captain Rex in this wacky little show. And he it's just Ronald and Sunday like hanging out in Ronald's house in McDonald Land. And then whenever like the characters are about to go on a quest, he'll get like a call on his video screens in his house that he has everywhere, of course. And they'll just be like really weird CG models. Like you just see CGI Grimace and Hamburglar, and they just don't look right, It's got a lot of charm, and it's really just fun. Like I remember seeing this as a kid and being like, this is like the coolest thing ever. Like I felt like I was the only one who knew about this. So it's one of my favorite guilty pleasures. Like I would gladly sit down with a 6-pack and watch the whole thing.
And one of the interesting facets of that is the animation of it, because here is probably the biggest shocker that we took when we first discovered the show. Because you presented the show, we had no idea the show existed, and so we went into it not knowing what to expect. And the biggest thing that we discovered is this was actually made by the same studio that made Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys. Klasky Supo, the iconic studio that made some of the most impactful Nickelodeon shows of all time. And if you didn't know that, it's actually prevalent in the show, because there's a lot of references or like similarities to Rugrats, like specifically like the animation of it, the character design of all the characters, some of the sound bites. And it's like there's so many references. It's just like, even if you didn't know that was made by Klasky Supo, you can look at it and see like, wait a minute, this seems very similar to Rugrats. Wait, what? Did you know that at all while watching the show before? Probably not before then but now. Did you have that epiphany growing up?
I did not. I actually was not a Rugrats kid. I never really watched Rugrats or the Wild Thornberrys, but now that you say that, I could very easily like see the similarities, especially in the art styles, because they have a very like kind of liney art to them, like Ronald's hair has like lines all up in it, and the other like Grimace has lines going down his body. But that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not just that similarity to like Rugrats and Thornberrys. It's classical soupy, that classical soupy like style of animation. This also feels like peak PBS 90s. It's like, it is a shame that there's only 6 episodes in it, because this truly could have been like peak PBS 90s. Is because you mentioned, and it starts off with live action, and then it transitions into animation, and a lot of that was prevalent in many of the PBS shows. Like Bill Nye the Science Guy, or like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, or like Magic School Bus. So even my show, Barney and Friends, kind of had that vibe in a way. And even like 90s kids, 90s Nickelodeon kids at the time. And with like, besides of course the obvious, Rugrats and Thornberrys, as you also had a lot of that crossover, or with things like Keenan and Kel, or like Legends of the Hidden Temple, just like that wacky, goofy, like how do I say that? Like what, like sort of zany. Like like zany, like camera sequences, has throughout, and then supplement some animation into that, which is even more goofier.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, now I get you didn't grow up with like Rugrats and Thornberries and all that. But did you grow up in that era of like early 2000s, 1990s shows like PBS or like Nickelodeon's? Because it sounds like you put all of that in. It kind of makes sense how you would enjoy something like this. So was that your era, or did this show just appeal to you in a way?
Well, my main cartoons as a kid, I was a very picky child when it came to cartoons. Okay, this is how I would view them. Like, SpongeBob is like, very colorful. Characters are all like kind of funny looking. And then like I would be watching SpongeBob, then Nicktoons would be like, up next, Avatar, and I'd be like, I don't want to watch that cartoon because that has real people. That's how I would watch cartoons, but then I would go watch My Life as a Teenage Robot and I'd be like, oh, this is fine, even though there's humans in it. But if I know Avatar is technically like a cartoon, but it's also kind of like an anime. But I never liked cartoons that just had like real people in them. Like they would have to look kind of funny or like look a certain way.
Right.
But I grew up with like SpongeBob. I grew up with some early Nicktoons. Like I grew up with a lot of early Cartoon Network stuff. Like I would watch Powerpuff Girls. I would watch a little bit of Johnny Bravo. What else? What other Cartoon Network shows were there? I watched Dexter. I really liked Dexter. I would also watch like, I never watched Animaniacs or anything like that. I would watch a lot of Scooby-Doo as well.
Right.
Not too many Disney like cartoons from the 90s or anything,
Right.
but I had a couple like kind of spliced in there.
Yeah, you were kind of interested in sort of that era of cartoon, and I think we talked about this in the podcast. That was really, the 90s and into early 2000s was like an early hotbed for a lot of experimental animation.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and especially with a show like this, you can make an argument that a lot of shows are like that, particularly Nickelodeon, especially like a lot of the Nick Jr. shows from the early 2000s. I don't know if you grew up on any of those shows, Lucas.
I grew up on Little Bill, Roly Poly Oly, Nick Jr. I grew up on Wow Wow Wubsy. That wasn't like early 2000s though. That was more like late 2000s.
It still had that vibe.
Yeah, but no, I had a fair share of like random cartoons. I also really liked like, Tom and Jerry. I wasn't really a fan of the Flintstones or Jetsons. I was like, these guys are kind of lame. Now I like them, but at the time I was like, they're just not funny. I grew up on the old Sonic cartoons. If you remember those, and the Mario cartoons, because I had a
fun fact. Our very first episode of this podcast was the Sonic cartoon. I don't know if you remember the show Sonic Saturday morning cartoon from like the early Sonic
Saturday AM. Yeah. Yep. That was
the first show that we ever talked about on this podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that show is that was like the first show I watched when I discovered it was on YouTube. I was like, what? This is all on YouTube for free? Yes. But yeah, Sonic Underground, all the different Mario cartoons, I would watch all those. Those were so fun. Yeah, kind of stupid, but fun.
Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of that was very experimental, both in the animation and the theme and of it all. So yeah, I get that. Now, I obviously I probably already know the answer to this, but what were some of the cons that you think are the reason why this show isn't as popular as you're giving it credit for?
Well, okay, I want to know who thought that putting one episode, they were like about a half an hour 40 minutes, I think, for each episode, but if they were selling them at McDonald's, for a limited time only, one episode on one VHS tape, and then that's it. Like, it's God. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. I know they were experimenting, But you know,
And
with
if
a
the research we did was correct, didn't they also like exclusively sell them at McDonald's?
yeah, only McDonald's. Of course, you know, that makes sense. It'd only be at McDonald's if they're doing it that way. But with how successful McDonald's is as a brand, it doesn't, you know, why wouldn't they like put it on the air, or like, I don't know, do a partnership with Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network? Because, you know, McDonald's is always going to have SpongeBob toys,
Mhm.
and Burger King, or no, we're not talking about Burger King, sorry. And and you know, McDonald's is always going to have like Cartoon Network toys, like they have Teen Titans toys and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's like they could have, you know, I'm pretty sure they had McDonald's toys for those shows in the 90s. They could have very easily done a partnership, I would have assumed. And if they already have in the studio that did Rugrats do that, it would have made more sense to just put the show on the air. Because I think, you know, the 6 episodes we were given, I'm gonna count it as 5, because the 6th episode didn't really exist and like nobody saw it for years, and they never sold it at McDonald's.
Mm.
um but you know, for the 5 episodes we did get, there were some cool ideas, like, ooh, a haunted mansion, ooh, going to space, ooh, you know, Ronald gets gypped on his birthday and he goes to the worst amusement park imaginable. Those are fun. Grimace Island, that, you know, like a ship adventure, and then time travel. Are you kidding me? I always thought that one was so cool, because I was like, that one was my favorite. I think it still is, but they could have, like, you know, maybe turned it into like a basically like a SpongeBob or Ren and Stimpy formula,
Mhm.
where it's like 10 to 12 minutes of cartoon, and then, you know, another cartoon right after it. They could have done it, and you know, they had a stellar voice cast. They had
Mhm.
Kevin Michael Richardson. They had freaking D. Bradley
Oh
Baker.
yeah, yeah. We'll discuss. We'll discuss. I want to discuss that in a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I do see what you're saying. And we've actually discussed this. McDonald's has actually had or had a pretty big partnership with Nickelodeon in the past. As I mean, we talked about a couple of niche Nickelodeon shows on this pod before. And both those shows actually had some pretty good partnerships with McDonald's. Those adhere to their Happy Meal toys, and a lot of niche Nickelodeon shows had that too.
Yeah.
I I think what it really comes down to is the marketing of it, because and I hate to say this, is because as yeah, 'cause, you know, it's the idea of marketing to kids,
Yeah.
and we discussed this before. All right, yeah, we personally think that storytelling for that kid storytelling is impeccable. However, I think we are bold to admit that in the entertainment industry, a lot of studios really only give proper marketing techniques to children's shows if they have candy coated colors and weird like corny referential bits, especially nowadays. As you know what I mean?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
don't market them the way they should for a lot of animated shows in general. It's just, it's kind of sad. It's like, dude, don't you want this to do good? Don't you want this to bring in viewers? And if you slap a whole season of something on to Netflix, for example, and then just, you know, release a little trailer on your YouTube channel being like, oh, look, Frankenstein Stories, the new show all on Netflix as of November 18th, and then, like, you know, nothing else. It's like, dude, it's gonna fail, because nobody's gonna hear about it and no one's gonna see the advertisements. Like they did that with Clone High season 3.
Mm.
They just slapped it on HBO Max and then they didn't even advertise it. And it's like, dude, why not? Freaking, you know, advertise your shows. People want to see fun animation. We don't want to see, you know, the same thing over and over again. So it's always sad for little shows like that when they get canned so early. It's ridiculous.
Especially when we're talking about McDonald's, even still at that time was at the height of their popularity, and especially when we're including McDonald's Land in that, that was the height of a lot of those characters' personalities.
Oh
Is
yeah, totally.
Yeah, and
You
coupled
know,
with the fact that again, Classic Super, who was big at the time, there's a good partnership that could have involved, and that really would have heightened and the effect of the show.
yeah, and like I don't know. One thing I never understood, okay, they do McDonald's toys for everything, man. They do
Mm-hmm.
them for Halloween buckets. They do them for the new animated movie coming out. They do them for cartoons that are popular. Transformers toys. They had Beyblades at one point. Pokemon. They have everything. I don't understand why we never got toys for this show. That makes no sense to me. Because it's like they're in their own art style in this show.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's original characters in this show that don't appear in any other McDonald's anything. And it's like the designs in this show too, they're also unique. Like the only one who looks like the same is Grimace, because he's Grimace. You can't really change Grimace. He's just a purple blob with the stupid face. But it's like they could have made little toys for these guys. Like there's like the cool Ronald with like his frizzy hair. Okay, that would have been a cool little action figure. Hamburglar, the original characters, Birdie, the chicken nuggets, Sunday the dog, like a wind-up toy or something. I don't know. So I never understood why they never made like toys based on this show. That makes no sense to me.
Which is even more bizarre because I'm pretty sure they appeared in some iteration of toys. Maybe not specifically for the show, but I'm pretty sure all those characters appeared in some kind of iteration of toys in that history.
Oh yeah, except like the original characters. Because there's Sunday, Franklin, and Tina. And Tina and Franklin are just like a dude and a chick. They're just like there. And then Sunday is Ronald's dog, but all the other characters are like established McDonald's characters. So it's a little confusing.
And they get a bigger story in this show, which is one of the things that I want to talk about in the next point. So, cons aside, what do you think are some of the pros that makes this show worth watching?
Well, I would say, I love obscure media. It's so interesting how some things are just made and then the world forgets about them. But when you find this piece of obscure media, you're like, ooh, nobody knows about this. Only I do. It's like just like how I found this as a kid at the thrift store. I was like, what? This is a thing? They made a McDonald's cartoon? I have struck gold. But it's like, if you want to watch a funny little just blast to the 90s past, this show would be for you, I would say. Or if you're just into obscure media, because it's like the Hamburglar, he sounds different in this show than I think anywhere else and looks different. Ronald, he sounds the same because I think the guy who plays Ronald played Ronald in the show.
Most likely.
Yeah, because it was the same voice from the intro where it was live action to the animated part. But this show, it's cute. Like it's a cute piece of history that nobody remembers. But besides that, some of the songs are kind of fun. There's some good acting in it. Like honestly, really good acting. There are some funny like WTF moments where you're like, huh? What? Some of the songs, there's this one song in the episode Birthday World where they're like on a roller coaster and they're being turned into children because that's the bad guy's plan of that episode, to lure them to a crappy amusement park and then turn them into babies for some reason. And there's this stupid song where they're in this roller coaster and it keeps looping the animation and the lyrics keep repeating for like 2 minutes. And then there's like a 20-second segment that's new, and then it loops again, and you're like, okay, what? It's so weird, dude. It's so weird. And I had that song stuck in my head like at least 3 times in my life where it would just be on a loop for like a week. And I was like, I hate this stupid song. But it's a fun show. It's got nice animation, great voice acting. And it's just, you know, if you watch it, you'll be the only person who knows about this, unless you want to spread it on to your friends and be like, hey, you guys want to watch the wacky adventures of a Ronald McDonald with me? So yeah,
And I feel like
fun. And especially the time travel episode. That one has a special appearance from Mayor McCheese in the 70s. So I think that in itself is worth watching.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. Because I feel like one of the other things that this show did well is this is the first, at least to our knowledge, where we really get an in-depth analysis on all the characters, quote unquote, of McDonald's Land, and really see them, at least to some extent, like kind of fleshed out almost, especially Grimace. Like I had no idea who
Grimace gets a lore dump, dude.
Yeah, I don't think anybody understood who Grimace was, what he is, or anything like that. But like as you mentioned in that episode, The Legend of Grimace Island, he gets a whole lore dump, and we figure out he's kind of like the Muppets from Space, Gonzo, like Gonzo from Muppets from Space, where we find out a little more about Gonzo. He's kind of like that, where he's like in this like specific tribe of Grimaces, because apparently they didn't have another name for Grimace. And it's like that, that to me shows that this show only has like 6 episodes, but at least it gives the time to like actually explain who the hell these characters are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like the biggest character. I mean, you learn Ronald is always like there. So this is interesting. So I never understood this as a kid, but now I kind of do because I understand how shows work and stuff. So every episode has a different cast of characters. I don't think there's 2 episodes that have the exact same characters in them. So what I mean by that is like, okay, in episode 1, Scared Silly, you have in every episode, there's always the same 5 characters. You have Ronald, Grimace, Hamburglar, Sunday, and Birdie. They're there every time. Okay. Yep. They don't leave the main group. And then
the McNuggets to some extent. The McNuggets.
Yeah, the McNuggets are in all of them except for 1. I don't think they're in like the 3rd one or the 6th one. One of the 2. It's been a minute. But like they're always there. And then sometimes you get the original characters that were made up, like Tina and Franklin. Like Tina's only in episode 1 and 4. That's it. And I think episode 6. No, she wasn't in 5. Yeah. So she's only in half of them. Then you have Franklin, who is actually a character that they meet in Scared Silly. He's not just like there, like they meet him at the mansion and stuff. Right. And he's at the very end of that episode. He's in Grimace Island. He's in Birthday World. He's in, I think, the time travel one. And then, so, and then the Fry Guys, they're only in the first episode. They never show up ever again. And I never got that as a kid. It kind of bothered me because I was like, what happened to them? Are they gone? Did they die? Why aren't the Fry Guys here, man? It kind of bugged me. There was no explanation, but they just never show up ever again.
I'm pretty sure that revolves around a marketing thing involving the Fry Guys with McDonald's as a whole. But that's like a whole other thing. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure the politics of that.
Okay, I didn't know there was a whole thing about the Fry Guys, so I learned something new. But yeah, it was always weird that they had that. And, it wasn't bad, but it was just like, how come the Fry Guys were in 1 episode, then none of the others? And then how come Tina is in like 2 episodes and then Franklin is in more when Tina was first? I don't know. It's weird. It's really weird, but Grimace gets a lot of lore in this. Ronald's always there. You learn more about him. Hamburglar, he in episode 3 is like his big episode, I would say. And, he kind of like learns to like not be so mischievous, but, that's only to a certain extent because his name is literally the Hamburglar. Birdie also is there for most of it. And she gets, her personality fleshed out. And then Sunday's my favorite character. I love Sunday.
I did want to ask about that because Yeah, and I think part of the reason you had some of the humans there, even though this is a whole slew of like crazy wacky characters, none of which are humans besides Ronald. I think it comes to the idea, like I said, like if you're marketing to kids and you kind of need that sort of human element, and to kind of have someone to reflect on, and like you see, like if you see yourself in the cartoon, then you can relate to it a little more. Or you mentioned your favorite character is Sunday, but which character do you point to and reflect and can reflect on? Like say it to see in this cast of characters. For me, I would say, hey, knowing my pedigree, I'm most likely Ronald McDonald. Although if you watch our show on YouTube, I'm probably a little more into Hamburglar. Who, which personality or character in that suite of characters do you point to and say and kind of have like a symbiotic relationship to and reflect on as a personality?
Um, well, I would say if I had to choose one, I would probably be like maybe Birdie, because she's kind of like the optimistic one. I mean, Ronald is, the most joyful dude in the bunch, obviously, because he's like the main character and he's like the mascot, so they have to make him joyful. But probably like a mix of Ronald and Birdie, because Birdie was also pretty optimistic and like if there was a part where Hamburglar would be like, oh, I don't want to go in there, I'm scared, she'd be like, oh, come on, Hamburglar, just get over it, we're doing it, we're going in that creepy mansion, and I'm kind of like the one in my friend group who's always like planning things or like organizing things. So I could relate to not Hamburglar, Birdie and Ronald the most, and maybe like a sprinkle of Hamburglar on the side and a little bit of Grimace.
And I think that's a testament to the talent, because one of the things that I think also makes this show work is the talent behind it, not just in the animation, but the voice acting. And like you mentioned it, and like the voiceover cast for this is just like unbelievably unmatched.
It's
I mean, like,
insane.
yeah, I mean, like, and we've seen, and again, this is from the '90s, so yeah, that was definitely a hotbed for like a lot of upcoming talent that we now know now. Tom Kenny was in Rocko's Modern Life, and then you got Carlos Alexandra, who voiced Rocco.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, in this show, you're getting everybody from Kevin Michael Richardson, to D. Bradley Baker,
to Charlie Adler.
Yeah, Charlie Adler, Christine Kavanagh, and Tara Strong pops in for a few cameo guest stars. To Jim Cummins, as you just said, Woody
Jim
the Pooh
Cummings,
himself,
as the announcer,
was the announcer for the trailers for the next episodes. Like that to me shows how powerful for a show can be, even if it is niche. Which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about. What is the cell that you think that you point to convince people that this is a show worth watching? Is it an episode or a scene or an arc that you can pinpoint to like try to sell people on this show?
Well, I unintentionally the first VHS tape that I found was the first episode, which was totally unintentional, which was kind of cool. But I would say overall, like, almost all the episodes are good. I think Birthday World was kind of on a rewatch a few years ago. I was kind of like, oh, this one does not hit as hard as an 8-year-old kid. So
yeah,
or as a 21-year-old adult at the time instead of an 8-year-old kid. But I think if you watch Have Time Will Travel, which is episode 5, that one is the best one. And also Scared Silly is also pretty fun because it's like the very beginning, and the intros are always like full of energy and life, because you got Ronald like flipping around his house, and it's literally, I think, a giant M or something. It's very like jarring to watch. But no, I would say either Scared Silly or Have Time Will Travel, because those two are some of my favorites. Scared Silly was the first one I saw, and there are some. I ragged on one of the songs in it earlier, but there's a song that plays when they go into the haunted mansion house on the hill, and it's actually pretty catchy. Like, it's got a good beat, a good rhythm. The voice acting is kind of funny, and there are some cool visuals in that episode. So I would say Scared Silly or Have Time Will Travel, because the time travel one is just it's probably the most out there out of the bunch. Episode 6, the McDonald Land Lock one, was also really good and actually had some pretty genuinely funny jokes that my friend and I were like cackling at. Because let's just say that in that episode, Birdie and Hamburglar, they're like flirting the whole time, and this never happens in any other episode, and they're just like kind of like flirting, but they're also like out for blood for each other. So when my friend and I were watching it, we were like, oh my god, dude, where did this come from? So, and can I mention one more thing?
Sure.
So there's 6 episodes, and this is really weird too. The first 3 episodes, okay, they all have the same live action intro, but then after that, the live action intro changes. In the first 3 episodes, it's the intro with Ronald and Sunday, like just doing stuff, and then, their friends call him. But after episode 3, Sunday's gone. He's in the animated parts, but he's not in the live action parts. Like, he's just not there. And it's never explained why. And as a kid, that kind of pissed me off, because I was like, where is Sunday, dude? But now I'm like, it was probably something wrong with the puppet, or that's what I'm assuming. But it was also kind of weird to see that, because I was like, what did they do to my guy? So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those things. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Episode 5 and episode 1. Time travel and Scared Silly. Those are what I would recommend.
Yeah, and a lot of those concepts, as you pointed out, really focus on like the fantastical side of it. Like, I think that's one of the things that's always appealed to us about animation. Like the idea of applying the fantastical while also keeping a little bit of the grounded. Like, there are some like really grounded moments in this show. Like there are a couple of life lessons to be learned. Sure, they're predictable. If you remember, this is a kids show. But that idea of making a show grounded while also fantastical, which you mentioned up top, is a lot of the stuff that you watch. What are the themes now that you look for in media that you really gravitate towards?
Well, things that I look for now. Well, I really just like. I'm a sucker for like really funny characters. Like, I love characters that can just, be themselves, and like. Let me give you an example. I recently watched Ren and Stimpy for the first time from last year into this year, and like, I'd never seen the show before, but I was like, I kind of want to check it out, because I feel like it would be my groove, and I watched all of it, and I loved it. It's some episodes are better than others, because there's a lot of history to Ren and Stimpy that I won't go into. But no, some of the stupid jokes like that Stimpy does, like where there's this one, like, just little silly passing where Ren is like sitting at a table, and he'll be like, Stimpy, you idiot, where's my dinner? And then Stimpy will be like, coming, Ren. And he'll walk in with like the dumbest look on his face, and he'll be like, a dinner is served. I'm a sucker for stupid stuff like that. I just love funny characters that can just keep me entertained, that just don't know what's going on. Like, Stimpy has become one of my favorite characters in media. But I love stuff like that, and like Ice King and Adventure Time. Just how like non like low key, but not unintentionally, but to him unintentionally funny he is. I love stuff like that, and I just love a good gripping story. Like, some of my favorite shows ever are Gravity Falls.
Oh yeah.
Owl House I saw last year for the first time. Great show. Fantastic show. Actually, that was this year. I love a good gripping story and just stupid characters. I think those are like the two things that I gravitate towards the most.
Always gotta rep my boys Ren and Stimpy and Ice Kid, who again voiced by my main man Tom Kenny. So you always gotta rip a shout out to that. And you notice he didn't talk about you, Sponge. He implied it, but he never said it.
I mean, SpongeBob is up there, of course. I can't leave out the guy.
Ha ha ha! Eat that. Shut up. All right, so now, Lucas, say if by some strange chance you had creative control over the wacky adventures of Ronald McDonald, what would you do with it? Would you reboot it? Would you revise it? Would you continue the series? If McDonald's gave you the keys to the show, what would you do with it if you had creative control?
Well, I would, if I could go back in time to the 90s, if I could have changed it then and or now, I would have been like, hey guys, how about instead of selling one episode for $20 like Dum Dums in the 90s, I'm sure it's like $60 with inflation applied now. But I would have been like, hey, just air your program on a network and see how far it'll go, because a lot of great cartoons are not that long, but they're still great. They like Gravity Falls 2 seasons, and it's a beautiful show. Now, I think with McDonald Land and the fact that Ronald McDonald is like a god in that world and he can do like whatever he wants, because I don't know if he's like the king of McDonald Land or whatever, but he has access to a time machine, to a giant boat, to a car. He could do so much to have fun adventures with him and Grimace and Hamburglar. So I would have maybe kept like the like a 20-ish minute show segment instead of like maybe 35 to 40, like 22 minutes on average, and just made it aired regularly. And if I could reboot it, dude, I kind of would, because we're in the year 2024 now, and there's so many people out there that could think of good idea. I can't think of any right now, of course, on the spot, but they went across the ocean, they went time traveling. Like, there could be so much stuff done. There could be an episode where they break Hamburglar out of jail over and over and over till he learns his lesson or something. And it's like the voice actors are all still around, I'm pretty sure. There's none that have passed on. And it's like I would have it regularly airing and just have it be like fun, maybe just do more like tie-ins with the brand, I guess. Like if there was a reboot, maybe actually promote the freaking thing, or like have toys for your show. Because I was thinking about this earlier. If they had toys for the show, maybe people would be like, oh, that looks cool. I like the way this toy looks. And then, maybe after like 3 times going to McDonald's, the mom of like the kid would be like, okay, I'll buy you this VHS tape. Maybe it could have done better if they had toys for their own show. But, I'm not the mastermind. But that's what I would do. I would probably reboot it or continue it. It'd be fun. There's a lot of potential, especially nowadays, where they could do a lot with that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, yes, it's tied to McDonald's, but if you look at this original show, there's not that many tie-in. Like, like in many shows they have like product placement where you can easily tell like they really need to buy this thing, or like use this whatever, or blah 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 blah. But in this show, especially from the fact that we're talking about McDonald's, there's not a lot of like product placement for McDonald's in general. I mean, yes, they have the arches, as in a lot of places,
and they have the logo plastered on everything.
Yeah, and they have the logo. But I mean, like, it's not like it's like grilling you or anything. Like, and like, yeah, if you see it, but like it's in its own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like I mean, they had like the McNuggets as a character, but they didn't have a McChicken as a character,
Mm-hmm.
or like characters eating anything like that. I think there might have been one part in one episode where you see like a McDonald's restaurant. I might be wrong about that, or like something like that, because there's one episode where they go to, it was the third episode, the visitors from outer space, where they go to McDonald Land Park to try to like find the alien or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like playing music, and they walk by like a store in the park, or like a little stand in the park, and I think one of the characters goes up to it and buys something. I could be wrong, it's been a minute, but yeah, no, they didn't really have like product placement in the show besides like the characters, or like
Yeah.
the logo.
Yeah, and Ronald McDonald, like out of any character, live action, maybe not animated, but certainly like live action. Ronald McDonald is just like that sort of like androgynous being that can really just do anything. Like he's kind of like a combination of like the Mask, the character from the Mask, and Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice mixed with Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
right? And like doesn't like he can really do like anything, and no one would really like bat an eye because he's Ronald McDonald.
Yeah. Like he could, like this version of Ronald was always like kind of interesting, because
Mm-hmm.
he could just be like, oh, okay, we're gonna go do this today, and then he would like spawn a ship out of nowhere, or he'd be like, oh, okay, we're gonna go do this, and then he'd just be ready to do it, and obviously it's a cartoon, like that's what they do most of the time with silly cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, and like I said before, like the 90s was really like that hotbed for like so much experimental animation, a lot of wacky themes and bits and tropes and all that. And one of the things that I truly hate about, well, at least what some people think about art,
Uh-huh.
and why I have a problem with some famous directors in Hollywood today. I won't name names, but just some out there where like some people view that art has to be like, and you must look into the inner depths of the human anatomy and understand the socio-economic pathos of the earth and history and life in general. That is the true essence of true art. I
Yeah,
think that's
like,
BS. I think that's absolute BS.
yeah. And I mean, it doesn't always need to be like, the most serious, like deep thing. But
Yeah,
it's like it can have, art can have like good morals and values and meanings, but it's like, not everybody's gonna get that.
it can absolutely, yeah, and again, it can absolutely have that dichotomy of grounded and fantastical. Like as someone that grew up with a lot of this media, and a lot of these like really off-brand, off-kilter like types of animation like that. Do you can you see like a resurgence of that old culture of animation, or do you think that era was just of its time?
Like the old culture of animation, like from the 90s.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that whole like era of like experimental, uh, like trippy, like off kilter and stuff like that.
well, it's funny that you say that, because I went to when I went to the LA Animation is Film Festival, I saw this movie called Boys Go to Jupiter, and it is the weirdest looking movie I've ever seen in a theater in my entire life. Think like early, like YouTube experimental animations, okay?
Mm,
Mixed with "Don't hug me, I'm scared" vibes. That's how it felt.
mm.
And it wasn't like a creepy movie, but it was like I could not, let me put it this way, I couldn't watch that movie under the influence of anything, or I would be freaked out. It's very weird, and the way the characters move and like their eyes move and the animation is, it's just like it's funny, to us, but it's just it's so unnatural and so weird. And when I watched it, I was like, this is my humor. This is exactly my kind of dumb BS humor that I love. And that's probably, again, that's the craziest movie I think I've like most out there movie I've ever seen in a movie theater. So with that being a movie that has yet to officially be released, I definitely think we could see more like experimental animation coming out if studios would let creators create, that is. But yeah, no, it's very possible, especially after watching that. It gave me hope for that kind of thing, where I'm like, if this is like a real movie that's going to be made, there's literally a song where a character like gets a guitar and then they just start singing about eggs. And like, eggs, you can have them any kind of way, scrambled, upside down, sunny side, and I was like watching it, I was just like, what? But no, man, experimental animation, I think it could come back. I think it might take a bit, but I think it could definitely come back to maybe like the 90s era, because I feel like we're going to push a boundary soon and people are going to start really like getting more and more creative, or like experimental creative. Let's put it that way.
And I think with some of the advances that animation has taken today, I think we can definitely look to some of those like newer styles of not just animation production, but like the how stories are made, and how characters can be presented. And like if we look at all the media that's coming up now, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, This Last Wish, The Wild Robots,
Spider-Verse.
Yeah, into the Spider-Verse, definitely. I definitely agree with you. I think the way that people are taking some risks now, definitely can be a gamble at times, but I think we can definitely look at some of the like success stories of those types of shows or movies or animation, and find at least a glimmer of hope, despite the fact that Hollywood is kind of going
they're going through a rough patch.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about that. That's another time.
That's a story for another day.
Exactly. Well, Lucas, an absolute pleasure to talk to you about this show. Where can the people online find you if they want to learn more about Lucas and his aspiring dreams to be part of the voice acting community?
Well, thank you. I appreciate you for having me on. This is my first time ever doing a podcast, and I actually really liked it. I had fun just talking about weird media. So I think that was a good first like way to ease me into this kind of, thing / voice work. Well, if you want to find me, my TikTok is at Lukas Does VO, and it's LUKAS, not LUCAS. I'm different, so my name is spelled different. Deal with it. My Twitter is just Lukas Doerzapf, which is spelled DOERZAPF. And then my Instagram is Jar Chair, which is kind of my personal Instagram, but I don't really care if people follow me on there because, I'm trying to build myself up in the world. So Lukas Doerzapf on Twitter, or X if you really want to call it that. Lukas Does VO on TikTok and Jar Chair on Instagram. So we'll get one name for all that one day. We're getting there. But yeah.
Well, I mean, folks, if you want to follow, folks, I'd say follow him. Hey, follow Lucas because yeah, he is who he is, and it's that sort of like like individuality that I think really can make it big in animation. And of course, if you like this podcast, be sure to like and subscribe us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can see some of our producers' incredible animation, including our show, Adventures of the Trio, hosted on me and my two compatriots here. And there's actually a new thing. If you have an idea for a niche animated show or movie that you think we should talk about on the podcast, you can email us at themcartoons@gmail.com. That is themcartoons@gmail.com. for our guest Lucas, for my main squeezes, SpongeBob and SponBalloon. I am Barney the Dinosaur. Said we will see you next time. Be sure to put your toys away when we're done with them, and we will see you next time on Talking to the Toys. Man, I am hungry.
Have a good night, everybody.